Hi guys, I got something a bit different for you today. I thought it'd be fun to do an interview with one of my players about the Abomination Vaults, and since Milo has just concluded his initial storyline, it felt like a good time to ask him about his story and his choices. This is going to be a bit of a trial run. If you guys like this type of content, then we'll do more of it. If not, then it might just be a one-off. So yeah, Max, just tell the guys a little bit about yourself, which character you are playing in the campaign.
Name's Max, and I play Milo. That's what I do. That's my contribution. And as for about me, I've been playing these kinds of games, starting out with um, 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons for a couple of years. So I haven't been playing for that long. It's not like a veterancy or anything like that. I haven't been playing edition after edition, but I feel like I played a fair bit at this point, pretty continuously.
So let's start with the obvious question. We moved from 5th edition to Pathfinder 2nd edition about a year ago.
Yeah.
How are you finding it?
I'm really liking it so far. I haven't regretted the switch. I mean, it took some time to get into it,
Mm,
and there's still some tension with what you used to know and what you usually
yeah.
handle situations and how they're dealt with here. But overall, I'm enjoying it a lot. I like the way you're more capable of creating a personalized character in
Yeah.
Pathfinder than you are in Dungeons and Dragons. Like not just in terms of backstory and fluff and things like that, but in terms of the mechanics of the game.
Yeah. It felt like in 5th edition, all of your customization came in like how you look, how your spells look, the way you attack and talk. Whereas in Pathfinder, you have like a mechanical option that can make you actually good at the thing that you are saying you're good at.
Yeah, exactly. Like in 5th edition, all of the things that make the character your character and makes it unique are just cosmetic things.
Mm,
Like you rebrand a spell into something else to fit a certain style of spellcaster that you have in mind, but it's still mechanically the same spell
yeah. And all your
or
important
the same action or the same thing.
Yeah, and all
Yeah,
your important choices are done within the first 3 levels, it feels like.
yeah, pretty much. Then everything is just railroaded from there.
I always
Meanwhile,
felt
here, every time you get a feat, you get like a huge selection of things to pick from, and you can just tailor make your character bit by bit as you go along.
Yeah, I always felt like with 5th edition, the cool customization ended up coming from magic items more than class choices or anything like that. It
Yeah,
was nice that with the feat system and stuff, you are you have like a Lego character that you're sticking on the bits that you want to be good at, and with the retraining as well. If you do
yeah, exactly.
choose something, you're not committed to it if you don't like it or if it doesn't suit the campaign.
Yeah, that's right. It's a modular type of build
Mm,
for the character, and you can like tack on modules as you want them. They all fit together in one way or another
yeah,
within certain constraints, of course, because I mean there needs to be some kind of rules, otherwise nothing would have any meaning. But
yeah,
they're very lax in that regard. You can become very suboptimal if you choose to be.
yeah. I do feel like it's you can't really make a bad character with Pathfinder as long as you commit to the stats that you're using.
Yeah, I think it's very easy to make a bad character. I mean, it's always easy in all of these systems to create something that you're probably not going to have a good time if you want to be successful.
Yeah,
But it's not hard to make a successful character either. Like you get all the tools you need, and you have to actively choose to be like bad.
yeah,
If you want to be bad, it's not you're not going to be choosing
mm,
things that doesn't work at all. Like they all have some sort of niche, even though sometimes you probably pick things that aren't relevant to whatever you're doing. I mean, it can happen, which retraining is really good for.
yeah. So Milo's backstory was the first one to get introduced. This was
Yeah.
because it was very nicely integrated into Atari. Are you happy with how the characters of Gregory and Milo's mother and the way that they were implemented?
Yeah, I like that. I like the way they came across. Um, I particularly like the way the like the relationship with the father, it's obviously like a bad one,
Hmm.
and it's like probably got a lot of. I feel like it came across as the way it was intended. Like there was a lot of baggage there and a lot of unresolved things,
Okay, that's good.
which is good. Yeah, which is good because that's what it was about. Like their inability to really see eye to eye on anything at all.
Okay, so that is what you had in mind then when you wrote the backstory.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Did you feel a bit of a conflict of interest when engaging with the backstory content? Because it sometimes felt like Milo was avoiding dealing with his problems, which
I mean,
in turn
yeah,
meant that you as a player couldn't engage with the backstory much.
not really, because I feel like that's how he would have engaged with it. Like
Okay.
he didn't want to deal with it. In his mind, as long as he could keep doing this and keep delving deeper and grow stronger and return successful, that would be his way to prove his point of view.
Right.
He had tried talking about it in the past, he had tried being himself, but that was clearly not the way he could show it to his father. So he had pretty much gotten this idea in his head that it was the only way to deal with it. And
Right.
until that point, he wanted to avoid the interactions, really, because he didn't really know how to deal with them.
Okay. So in his mind, he wanted to re-engage once he had almost like the win condition of like, I've done
Yeah,
this.
exactly. He wanted to build up his deck or his arsenal with all the things thought he'd need to win the argument, exactly, and
Okay.
prove his worth and his skill, and that his path that he had taken, that he had chosen instead, was a worthwhile one.
Okay. Cool. Towards the end, it kind of felt like your party was pushing for Milo to confront his problems a lot. How did Milo feel about this, and how did you feel about it as a player?
I mean, as a player, I just like all of the drama and interaction stuff. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's just fun to me.
Mm,
I mean, to Milo, it's rough. He didn't
mm,
want to deal with any of that. He doesn't really have the capacity to just cope with it.
right.
At least, I mean, he didn't think he did. At least, might have changed a bit now, but in a sense, he just wanted to. I mean, he would appreciate their concern because that's given the amount of stories that he's consumed, being a lot of his painting a lot of his worldview. That's how companions should be, right? They
Yeah.
should worry, they should care, and they should push their friends to do better. So he wouldn't have any problems with them doing that, but he'd prefer it if it wasn't him having to do the difficult thing, you know?
Right. Okay. The ending that I presented was quite a dour one,
Yeah.
and it was kind of supposed to be a consequence of Milo's refusal to confront these problems. It had a breaking point, but it does seem to have been like a powerful new source of motivation for Milo. Um, so, what are your thoughts on Gregory's death?
Well, I thought it was great.
That's good.
I mean, yeah, as great as it could have been. It was a good conclusion to it. Like
Mm,
Milo is flawed in that regard. It's one of his weaknesses, his inability to deal with that situation and really confront his own demons in that way.
right.
So I agree that it was a conclusion that it came as a surprise, but in hindsight, it really isn't all that surprising. It makes sense that he acted the way he did, even
Yeah.
though Miley will probably never really understand.
Mm,
Um, like it's too emotionally motivated for him to really be able to put himself in like in his father's shoes in that regard. It might change later on, like he might understand, but as things stand right now, and probably will for a while, it's gonna be a source of confusion in a lot of
okay.
ways. But the death of his father is still definitely going to be a potent motivator. That, along with the death of Rock and
Yeah.
his own ideas that he needs to finish what they started.
Hmm.
That's going to, yeah, that's going to definitely stop him from wandering off in any sense.
Yeah.
He's going to be dedicated to the mission.
Right. It doesn't feel like he's sort of had that victory stolen from him necessarily. Sort of just changed the dynamic of of the consequences of what happened.
Well, I mean, there hasn't been a lot of victory so far.
True. Yeah.
It's been a lot of setbacks, and
Mm,
what victories there have been small in comparison to the consequences.
that's true. Yeah.
So
Moving
they
on.
are definitely in like a rut in
Mm,
terms of spirit.
they are. Yeah, I can see that a lot with May. She's
Mm.
she's really struggling to see the point in it all, which is interesting. It's good that Milo is one of the ones who is quite gung ho with like, no, we are going to do this. We are going to keep facing these problems.
Yeah, especially now that there have been consequences, because to him, not following through now would make all of these deaths. I mean, all of these deaths. It's two deaths, but it's still very significant to him.
Yeah, close to
These
home.
deaths, yeah, exactly, very close to home, and these deaths would become meaningless if they decide not to pull through
Mm,
and finish what they started. So if they pull in that direction, it's gonna take a lot of pulling to make Milo back off.
that's good. It's nice to have a character that I can rely on to push the others as well. Moving on to the adventure path as a whole, the
Mhm.
Abomination Vaults. What are your initial thoughts in this early stage?
It definitely feels like a good adventure path. I do like the structure of it and the setting and, well, the pretense.
Mm,
It's quite good, and it doesn't, it doesn't do anything spectacular. It's nothing that someone who has read and played a lot of played a lot of games, read a lot of books, especially fantasy.
mm,
It's nothing groundbreaking in terms of the setting or the pretext for the adventure, but it's good and it's solid, and it's the kind of thing that you think of when you think of an adventuring party doing adventuring things, and I
yeah,
really like it for being that.
it felt very appropriate as a first adventure in Pathfinder because it's like we're learning this system in
Mm,
what feels like a very grounded adventure experience. We're not like globe tropping, finding all these different locations, having to learn like, oh, who's here, who's here. We establish where we are, we establish what we're doing, and then it's like learn the game, experience these cool things.
yeah, and in that regard, it's excellent.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I think it's a good first adventure for us. The consensus online is that the Abomination Vaults is a really good dungeon crawl, but it lacks roleplay opportunities and it can be really punishing at times. Have your experiences mirrored this, or do you disagree with that sentiment?
Yes and no. Like, I don't think we've had any troubles finding role playing opportunities, but I think that's a lot to just group dynamic. I think we've always been able to do that, even
Mm,
when we're playing D&D, and almost regardless of the campaigns we've played together, we usually find opportunities to just express our characters a bit.
yeah,
But it also boils down a lot to, I mean, you weaving those things in there, even though they weren't there to begin with.
yeah. I feel like a lot of it comes down to your approach as a group tends to be well, you default into this position of feigned servitude a lot, which means one group might go through this and they'll kill Boss Gronk, they'll kill Grolgust, they'll kill the ghouls, they'll just kill their way through the adventure. Whereas you guys will very often try and start every encounter with a conversation, at least if you can,
Yeah.
which then leads you to having the chance to talk to a lot of creatures that maybe other people haven't spoken to.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think, yeah, that's just how we do things. Like, if there is a way to talk before the battle, it's both, a strategic thing, like learning about who you're fighting,
Mm,
but it's also out of interest of trying to find a different way to deal with it. I mean, I don't think any of us are under the assumption that we're going to be able to talk our way out of problems,
sure.
but at the same time, the desire to try is there.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, we don't really have, or maybe we do actually. Now that I think about it, we could probably approach a lot of these situations through stealth, but
Yeah.
none of us have ever been good at doing that. I mean, I can't think of a single time that we've played, even though we played stealthy characters, that we've actually been doing a lot of stealthy things.
Yeah, I guess I feel like that sometimes comes down to our social agreement that we all get involved in everything, and a lot of the time stealth stuff is like this one character
Avoidance.
is going to like go and do this thing, and the rest of the party
Mm.
have to kind of wait for that information to come back. It's not something our group tends to do a lot, which I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe is down to the way I present things, but I'd hope not, because I am willing to obviously do stealth sections and stuff if that is what the approach the group want to take.
Yeah, but I also think we have like an aversion to splitting up in general.
Rightly so, to be fair. It never tends to
Yeah, I
go
mean,
well.
yeah, we've had bad experiences with in the past. And yeah, a lot of pop culture tells you don't split the party. That's
True.
that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
So I think it's just ingrained.
Mm. Okay. What about the sort of the difficulty level of it? Is it
Oh yeah,
felt
right.
harsh at times? Has it felt fair? And it's just like you guys haven't prepared properly? How do you feel?
I do feel like it's pretty rough.
Okay.
Definitely rough. It feels like almost any encounter that we get into, except like the last couple, I think we've handled those better.
Mm.
But most encounters, it feels like you're like, even if you're at full health, you're basically one good hit away from down, like going down.
Yeah.
And I like the amount of money that we have and the resources we have at our disposal. I don't see how we could improve our survival rates in combat any through gear,
Mm.
at least not that we have access to right now.
Sure.
As for our approach to combat, could definitely be better. We're not very strategic players in like the combat sequences of the game.
Yeah.
But
I feel like in hindsight, because like corpse lights, you got smashed, then you went in and it seemed like the easiest fight ever on the second try. The
yeah,
blood siphon was like nearly two people dead, and then you went back and like you struggled a bit when it latched onto you, but you killed it in like 3 rounds. So I feel like once it's almost the information game, right? Once you know what you're up against, you guys can handle it very well.
yeah,
I feel like this because of your like recall knowledge based class. There was that confusion for a while about other players thinking they can't do recall knowledge. So it is very underutilized in our game, I think.
yeah. But I also think I've been thinking about it. Like, are there things about recall knowledge that we're doing wrong? Because I remember reading something about the difficulty of recall knowledge going up every time you succeed on a specific
Yeah,
creature.
it is supposed to. The DC goes up for every question you ask.
Yeah. So like every time I use exploit vulnerability, the DC for the questions keep going up.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
So there's like a limited amount of information that you can get out of a single creature.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that's part of your thaumaturge stuff. Getting like all the weaknesses in one on like a crit success is a way of sort of kind of getting more efficient use out of recall knowledge.
Yeah. I also think like a problem that we have with the use of it is that it like the use of recall knowledge to get information like what kind of AC does this creature have, or what's their most potent spell, or things like that. It
Mm.
feels a lot. It feels too much like metagaming.
Yeah, I see why that'd be a thing. Sometimes it does feel weird, right? When you run into something that's like supposed to be unique, like the blood siphon, for example, um, is supposed to be a one of a kind creature.
Yeah,
So it's got a very difficult DC to hit for things like what can it do, what's its AC, what's its DC, that kind of thing. It feels odd that you could know that, but the way I've kind of put it in my head is you're analyzing, right? You're not trying to remember.
mm,
It's not like, oh, have I read about a blood siphon before? It's like, oh, let me look at its skin. let me try and work out like, oh, the way it's reacting to being hit, its AC is probably this.
Yeah, and that's the way I've been trying to integrate it into Milo as well. Like the book that he has, the tome, it is magical. It's his thaumaturgic implement.
Yeah.
So the way I think of it is that when he tries to recall knowledge, it's not him trying to recall knowledge in his own mind. It's him channeling thaumaturgic power through his book, and it
Ah,
either succeeding to pick up on either information that he has, because he's dumped everything he knows into this book.
yeah.
So either it brings up some old memory by just switching to a page that contains that information, or it switches to a page that he never ever wrote into the book, that he wrote
Ah,
itself, that just contains information about the creature that he's facing.
it's kind of like a
It's
Pokedex.
Yeah, kind of like a Pokedex, but a Pokedex that is like alive and that is able
Mm,
to gain information about things
I like
on
that.
its own. Because from what I've seen, at least, further down the line, you're going to be able to do things like that with the tome
Ah,
as a thaumaturge.
that's cool.
Uh, yeah, it is pretty cool. So I figured I'd lean into that a little bit already.
Okay, so which aspects of the story have interested you most? What like plot threads are you looking forward to delving into more?
That's a good question. The most interesting part of it to me is, what is this place even? You know?
Okay.
What, like, yeah, this is like a lighthouse that shoots beams of negative energy or whatever, but why is it here? Yeah, Belcora fought guys in the past. Yeah, but like, who is Belcora? Why did it build this? Why does it go so deep? What are their plans?
Okay.
Why now? All of those things that will tie everything together. That's
Right.
the main one to me personally.
Yeah. That is the big question, I guess. So, where do you think the story is going? Any predictions that you think you could make about upcoming story?
It's hard to say. I mean, I'm going to assume that we'll encounter Belcora at some point. I mean, there's no. I don't think they're dead. Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. From
Okay.
a story perspective, it would make a lot of sense that they're alive and we've been in some kind of lich hibernation or whatever,
Ah,
and
okay.
they're moving to restart whatever they were doing in the past. But it could also be an apprentice of theirs, you know,
Mm, yeah.
making moves, trying to reignite whatever struggle they were doing in the past. But like I said, it's hard to say. We don't have a lot of information about what's actually going on yet. We have some assumptions, we have some baseline things, like we know energy is building up, we know what the lighthouse can do,
Mm,
and we've seen like images and things of what it might have done in the past or what it was intended to do. But a lot of the context is missing.
sure. Yeah. If you knew then everything that you know now about the adventure, would you have changed Milo in any way, either based on story or on build?
Maybe I might have focused a bit more on his combat potency, like maybe going for the weapon implement instead of the tome.
Ah, okay.
But at the same time, the tome feels very appropriate to
It does.
him.
Yeah.
Um, and in terms of that, I'm not sure. Instead, I'm rather thinking that I will go for the implement as my or the weapon as my second implement.
Yeah. Grow
Like
into
him
it.
dedicate Yeah, exactly, and him dedicating himself to winning this fight and avenging Rock and avenging his father. He's going to, pick up the sword, become a master.
Yeah.
As such, I'm looking forward to that as a reason for him dedicating himself to the sword and getting a weapon implement in doing so.
Nice. When did you get that?
Fifth
Fifth
level, I think.
level. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Still trying to think of a way to make it feasible. Like, what weapon would he choose as his implement? I
Mm,
figure it should have some kind of meaning to him personally. That's a
yeah.
lot of the way I've been thinking of the thaumaturge.
It does have a lot of like feelings and vibes built into
Yeah,
the lore of that class. What advice would you give to someone who's about to play Abomination Vaults for the first time?
I would definitely say that it is a really good idea to ground your character in Otari. I feel like that's been very rewarding.
Yeah,
And I feel like having your character be an outsider would take a lot of the impetus away from your character's reasons for keeping on doing this. Because it is a
yeah,
rough campaign, and the struggle floor by floor down into the Abomination Vaults, I feel like it would be hard to motivate your character's actions if they weren't motivated by, saving the people they know, or wanting to preserve their home and fighting for, themselves in a way.
yeah. That's
It would
very
be hard
true.
to motivate, have a mercenary character going down there, for instance.
Yeah, it would definitely change the vibe of the campaign to have a group of outsiders going in, because it would be a
Yeah.
case of like, why are we doing this? They'd probably have to keep asking for more as like a, you need to pay us better, you need to provide more supplies, that kind of thing, which would change the balance of the game a little bit as well.
Yeah, I think that we would.
Okay, so some final rapid fire questions, and these ones are just for my sake.
No,
Um,
sure.
one thing that you enjoyed, one thing that you have not enjoyed, and something you hope to see in the future.
Okay, one thing that I have enjoyed. It's hard to think of something in particular because I've every session is a good session. I usually just enjoy the vibes and playing the game.
Mm,
But if there's one thing in particular that I really like, it's the way that each of these floors are their own like contained little mini thing. Like
mm,
every floor has its theme and its dynamic and its possibilities that you can create with it.
yeah,
And I'm really looking forward to seeing what the other floors are themed around. If I wanna go down that route, like,
yeah,
because it certainly feels like they have like a purpose. Each floor has a purpose in its
yeah,
design and its the creatures you fight and the things that you encounter.
yeah. Some of them do get very interesting, so I look forward to you seeing them.
Yeah, me too. I'm really enjoying that so far. I mean, we haven't even looked through most of the what is it, the
The third
second
floor
floor? Okay, yeah, third floor. If you
library.
Yeah, we haven't even looked through most of that.
No, there's a hell of a lot on that floor as well. That's this one of the
Mm,
bigger ones.
no, I can imagine. As for something that I haven't liked, one thing I don't like is it's the way that it's hard to put it into words, but it just feels it feels very limiting in a way, the way the three action system is set up, because
Okay.
there's a lot of small actions
Oh yeah.
that end up like consuming your entire turn a lot of the time.
Mm,
um, and you end up in like a cycle, like especially when you go down and have to get back up. Okay,
yeah.
you stand up, that's one action. Picking up all your stuff, that could be one or two actions, and then it's on to the next round, and hopefully you won't go down again to both waste the round that you go down, but then waste the one where you get up because you have to like pick everything back up. I mean, I know why it's done like that. I get it, but in a way, it feels very. It doesn't give you a lot of room to recover, in a sense.
That's true. Yeah. It's almost done for realism, but from like an enjoyment of a game stance, it does I can see why it would get a little like tedious.
Yeah, because
Um
I go down a lot,
you do.
so I have to waste so many rounds just picking my things back up again.
Yeah. And then yeah, something that you hope to see in the future of the campaign.
Well, in a selfish kind of way, I'm hoping to see something something really awesome in terms of a weapon that would make for a great implement.
Ah, okay. Okay.
I mean, so far it's just like I have a short sword. That's cool, I guess. but I want something significant to bond with, you know?
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting because the way the Pathfinder magic items work, like there are magic items that are like these
Mm.
complete things, but because of the rune system, a lot of them are just like you take a weapon and you buff it up.
Yeah,
Um,
but a lot of like I think there's a lot like there's plenty of weapons that are like significant in their origin, even if they're set up like a basic runic weapon.
sure, yeah, okay,
And I just like stuff like that. I like significant pieces of gear with lore
yeah,
behind them.
some
I love
historical
that stuff.
good
Yeah,
stuff.
like something historical. It's always been a favorite part of any dungeoneering experience. It's the loot. It's the cool things. It's the
Mm,
gadgets and trinkets and thingamajigs.
yeah, okay, great. As a thank you, I will allow you to ask me one question if you would like to, but nothing that will be a spoiler.
Hmm. Do you think we can beat her as we are now?
The ghoul.
Yeah,
Um,
because I'm struggling with the idea of us succeeding that fight.
I think you can, but you need to have a plan. I think you know enough about her and how she fights to come up with a viable plan, and that might include buying certain things or making sure you prepare certain spells. I think the next time you fight her has to be, we are going to fight her today. Let's prepare.
Yeah,
Um, and I think you need to look out for certain things. Like she has a spell with the death trait. You need to account for that, or someone will die again. It's unavoidable.
yeah,
But I think you can beat her. I think your plan to get Corlock on side is also very fun and could be a fun way of taking what you have available and turning it to be part of your plan, your side.
yeah, yeah. I think so too. But well, having seen what she can do once and feeling like we haven't made any significant progress in terms of our own strength,
Yeah.
uh, it's been hard to visualize it. But yeah, I think it's a lot of it's gonna rely on our cleric.
Yeah. So yeah, she might have to make sure she prepares a certain a certain amount of spells. Okay. Thank you very much for talking with me today.
Yeah.
I look forward to our next session and getting into this. I'm going to call it season 2. It's not season 2, but it
No.
feels like it in a way.
Yeah, I mean, there's been one conclusion, like a story arc that has gotten it's had a climax, so it makes
Yeah.
sense thinking it as a new chapter.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, there we have it. That was our interview with Max. I think that went pretty well. I think we got some good information out of that. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it as well. Let me know in the comments if you would like to see more of this kind of content. Maybe after each character gets their arc completed, we can do another one. That's all for today. Bye bye.